Back in 2015, Nvidia were absolutely blitzing the GPU market, and this was for good reason. Their new, at the time, Maxwell architecture was absolutely great. It catered towards everyone's budgets, everyone's needs, that sort of thing. The GTX 960 sat towards the bottom of this stack, and it was the most popular card that they made. So 7 years on, how does this performance segment GPU perform in 2022? Let's find out. Launching all the way back in January of 2015, I know it's been a very fast 7 years. The GTX 960 appealed to those gamers who were looking to play the latest and greatest games at the time, like GTA 5 and The Witcher 3, at 1080p and 60 FPS. Pairing this with its launch price of $199 US, it made it a very popular and successful graphics card. The 2GB model that I'll be testing today features 1024 CUDA cores, 128-bit memory bus, and as the name implies, 2GB of video memory. The specific card I've got on me today is the MSI GTX 960 blower style. I don't know what it's actually called, but essentially it's just like a regular blower style cooler, which is, I think it's the bare minimum for a GTX 960 because this GPU does get quite hot. However, it stays pretty cool, which might be why it's getting hot. However, this core is basically the bare minimum, and Nvidia recommend a 300 watt power supply with the 960, which is not that much at all considering the GPUs of today, and it has a 120 watt TDP. If you watched my latest video, you would have known that I've built a brand new test bench, and this is the first GPU being tested in that. The test bench includes a Ryzen 5 5600G, all stock settings, 16GB of CL16 3200MHz crucial ballistics memory, and a GB Aorus X570 Ultra motherboard. I've also included some brand new tests which test for temperature, and also I'm testing in Unigine superposition as well, which I think are some great synthetic tests just to sort of cross-reference with future graphics cards. In Unigine heaven, it got up to 81 degrees C under heavy load, which I'll be honest isn't too great for a GTX 960. It's a 120 watt TDP card and it was tested in an open air test bench, so yeah, this cooler isn't great. In Unigine superposition at 1080p medium, it got 4,373 score, which is, I'll be honest, I don't know how good that is. I haven't tested any other GPUs on this test bench, so as future comes, we'll get more tests done and I'll build up sort of a database and then we can see where it stacks up there. Starting off the gaming benchmarks with Rainbow Six Siege, it's a very easy to run eSports game. Ubisoft intended it to be really easy to run as they can reach a wider audience as more people will be able to play the game and therefore buy the game. However, the GTX 960 on average got 93 FPS with a 1% low of 59 FPS. This was achieved on the medium preset in the in-game benchmark, which I believe is on the Oregon map. I'm not too sure how other maps will differ in performance, but this should be a pretty level playing field, I guess. However, I do recommend lowering further if you have a high refresh rate monitor to get more frame rates. I believe the 960 would be able to push out around 120 if you do lower the settings quite a bit. Next game up is Forza Horizon 5, and it's quite a bit harder to run than Forza Horizon 4 from what I've noticed. I've noticed from playing this on my own rig with my 1080 Ti, but it's not by a massive amount. However, the GTX 960 got 52 FPS on average and a 1% low of 42 FPS. This was on the low preset in the in-game benchmark. It does look slightly better than the base Xbox One while having almost double the amount of frame rate. So yeah, it's not too bad actually. It's better than what I expected, but the benchmark does take place in the most intense area, so if you're out in the fields perhaps, you might be getting slightly better frame rates. Next game up is Fortnite, and I've noticed one thing with Fortnite is it can be quite stuttery at times. That's because the map is quite big and that's due to the nature of it being a battle royale. However, on average we got 78 FPS and 41 FPS for the 1% load. This does signify some stuttering, which I previously mentioned. This was on the medium preset in the Chapter 3 Battle Royale map. One thing that I could recommend is trying out the Performance API. I haven't tried it myself, but this could eliminate a lot of the stuttering, because I do have this stuttering even on higher end systems, and it's happened a lot of times when I've tested out graphics cards. The PC port for GTA 5 came out in the same year as the GTX 960, so performance here should be pretty great. With 91 FPS on average and 70 for the 1% low, it's not too bad, I'll be honest. This was with the high settings, 2x MSAA, no advanced settings enabled, and my custom city driving benchmark. To be fair, performance here, not bad as always with GTA 5. GTA 5 always performs very well, especially with cards that came out 2015 and onwards. Next game up is F1 2021, and Codemasters always do a very good job of optimizing their games, and F1 2021 is no exception. The GTX 960 got 63 FPS on average with a 1% low of 49 FPS. This was on the medium preset, and as always in the wet Australian GP benchmark. This makes it the worst case scenario, as there's a lot of reflections, a lot of spray. The GPU has to work very hard in these wet benchmarks. This is not bad performance at all. I did estimate it to be a bit harder to run than 2020, and it's slightly harder to run, but not that much harder to run. I don't think a lot has actually changed under the hood for 21, so yeah, I do recommend these settings while playing the game as well. Next game up is Rocket League, and like Siege, it's a really easy to run esports game. However, there is a slight performance problem, and I believe it's down to the game, not the graphics card. More on that in a bit. However, the GTX 960 got 132 FPS on average, with 48 FPS for the 1% low figure. This was achieved on high quality, which it defaulted to. However, the 1% low figure is so low because there is an issue with this game for some reason. When you use the boost in the game, it does make the frame times go all over the place. I don't know why it does this. It does it on my main desktop with my 1080 Ti, and it's done it on different PCs I've tried out with this game as well. So I believe it's an in-game issue, not an actual issue with the system or anything like that. Last game up today is probably the hardest one to run, and that's Assassin's Creed Valhalla. The GTX 960 got 39 FPS on average and a 30 for the 1% low. This was achieved on the low preset in the in-game benchmark, which, to be fair, this is better than expected because AC Valhalla is a very hard game to run. However, as this is an RPG sort of S game, like an open world, not competitive or anything like that, it's still quite playable, and you can still enjoy it if you're just trying to squeeze some extra life out of your GTX 960. But 39 FPS on average is not too great, I'll be honest, but you can't really complain when you're playing on a mid-range GPU from 7 years ago. After doing all this testing with the GTX 960, I can take away where its strengths and weaknesses lie. It tends to be really strong in esports titles like Siege and Rocket League, but this is to be expected. Like all old mid-range and high-end GPUs, they do perform quite well. This is because the developers want to optimise these games as best as they can, so they can reach a wider target audience. And another great thing about Maxwell in general is it's aged pretty well. It's got full-in baked DirectX 12, which can't be said for Kepler GPUs. And I'll be honest, considering that the VRAM is a bit of a limitation, it's not as much as a limitation as what I thought it would be. And this GPU is also very power efficient. I didn't think Maxwell was this power efficient, but 120 watt TDP on a 60 series card, not too bad at all. On to the bad now, and it's the VRAM. The VRAM is the main limitation with this card. Probably not so much as a problem with the 4GB model. However, 2GB of video memory is just simply not enough in 2022. The 4GB model is probably cutting it close as well, but this card in newer AAA games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it really struggled in it. This is very specific to this card, but it does have a pretty bad cooler. It gets way too hot in games. 81 degrees C is not acceptable for a GTX 960. However, this is specific to this model of card. If you got something like a Strix or a For the Win from EVGA, they would probably run a bit better as well, as it wouldn't have to dial down the clocks as much, and they would be a lot cooler. So after all this, would I recommend this GPU in 2022? And as the answer is, it depends. If you have one already, are you happy with it? If you are, just keep it, hold on for a bit longer. GPU prices are improving, but not by a fat lot right now, I'll be honest. If you're not happy with the performance right now, I say wait out a bit, see what the GPU market's going to do, because I think it's improving. But if you're really desperate, I say upgrading something to like a 3060 would be a massive upgrade. And if you're looking to buy one of these for a budget esports build, something like that, I'd say go for it. Definitely for esports games like Counter-Strike, Siege, Rocket League, they will run pretty well. And sometimes if you even want to dabble in the newer AAA game, it'll do just fine, just for now though. However, I'm going to leave the video there, so if you like the video, like it and stay subscribed for more benchmarking content, because it is coming with this test bench, and I will catch you in the next one. See you then.